Well, welcome to the 7 o'clock talk. Dr. Miller here with Nurse Jessica. And tonight we are going to have to apologize about the sound. I left the clinic in such a hurry, I forgot to bring the microphone. So if you can't hear this, my apologies. But tonight we're going to talk about the microbiome and antibiotics. But before we do that, we're going to do a little housekeeping. And we wanted to say thank you, Haley, who has been working on our social media. She has actually put together a I don't know these things. It's an email thingy. So if you have plantar fasciitis, you can hit us up in the comments. We can show you where to sign up, and you will get exercises for plantar fasciitis and where we talk about that stuff. So Haley, our health coach, is also a social media maven. And we're going to talk about antibiotics and the microbiome and how they affect the microbiome. First and foremost, I want to say antibiotics. I'm not anti-antibiotic. Hi, Kathy. I am anti long-term use antibiotics. Antibiotics have saved a lot of lives, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
So, and she's been in the hospital and seen them. But one of the problems with the overprescription of antibiotics is, well, let's set some context. Your human body, if we look at the whole genome of your human body, so that's all the genetic material that's you, how much of you do you think is bacterial, viri, fungi, genetics, and how much of you is human genetics? I know you know the answer, but take a second here. If depending on who you read, you are between 80 and 90% bacterial, fungal, viral DNA. So your microbiome, the things that make your short chain fatty acids, your hormones, your neurotransmitters, all of these things are, hold on, my plantar fasciitis disappeared when I started eating better. That's a big thing, Susan, absolutely. But back to the genome and stuff. The problem with antibiotics is how much antibiotic resistant. Explain antibiotic resistant bacteria to them, MRSA and stuff like that.
Well, they're superbugs, but they're created by us because you used to get a script for antibiotics for anything and everything, and children were overprescribed for throat infections and ear infections being huge. But a lot of times people would take the antibiotics until they felt better, and then they would set them up on the shelf. So they would only weaken the antibiotic. They wouldn't actually, they would weaken the bacteria, but they wouldn't actually kill it. And then it became stronger because of the antibiotic. And so then that antibiotic, when they seen it again, it wouldn't kill them. So now we've created like methyl resistant Staph aureus, which is MRSA. That's the big one. And because of the overuse of antibiotics, we've also sterilized the gut, which is a big super infection when the gut becomes sterilized, and that's C. diff. That's highly contagious because that's a spore form, so it can live a very long time. And honestly, I think it's even been proven to be able to live in bleach, and I believe MRSA can also. So anyway, those are the two big ones. But there's lots of the bacteria are becoming resistant to antibiotics, so it takes a higher strength of antibiotics in a higher quantity over days, sometimes weeks. And now it's not uncommon for somebody that has had like a MRSA infection to have to get IV antibiotics around the clock for months.
And so one thing to realize in the phylum or the kingdom of bacteria, they are highly promiscuous. they will exchange genetic material right now. And so those genes for the antibiotic resistant bacteria, those genes, because they are selectively picked by the bugs to live, that bug doesn't die, it gets to transmit its DNA to the next bug, and they do, and it spreads very, very rapidly. So the microbiome and the bacteria are highly promiscuous, and that's how that spreads. And so you have to be aware of the antibiotic and its use, because if I have an encephalitis, if I have a gastroenteritis, if I have some form of life-threatening thing, I will take an antibiotic. Now, I haven't had an antibiotic in probably, I didn't even take any antibiotics after my hernia repair. So
Well, they
I-
gave you a dose before they cut into you, but you didn't get you did not receive one, nor
You-
did you take any afterwards.
so
But everybody gets a prophylactic dose of antibiotics prior to a surgery.
So when we start to think about the antibiotics, how much dosing does it take to change the microbiome? Well, first off, you have to remember that medically, they used to think that antibiotics were the panacea, the silver bullet, it did everything. And so they would put people on antibiotics because they said, hey, the risk of an infection is worse than the risk of whatever the antibiotics might do, because they didn't know what the antibiotics did.
Well, and one of those problems is a lot of times they were being prescribed antibiotics when they didn't actually have an actual bacterial infection. They actually had a virus, and an antibiotic will not help for a virus. A virus actually truly has to run its course, or you need an antiviral.
And so what most antibiotics do is they do a clear cutting of all the bacteria. So they kill indiscriminately. They don't select the good bugs or the bad bugs. And so if you've had prior infections, here's where it gets tricky. When you're young and you're super resilient, it's not a big issue. But if you've had multiple rounds of antibiotics when you were younger, as you get older, those bacteria are extremely resilient, and they reside in you. And since they reside in you, then as you get older and your microbiome changes all naturally, then all of a sudden this becomes the main player on the block. And so the antibiotics, A, don't work anymore. B, this bug becomes dysbiotic, dysbiosis. It's out of balance with the rest of the microbiome. And so we have to be very careful with how we treat that bug so that it doesn't go crazy and really cause big problems, because people can start to get gastritis, and it can screw up they can get diarrhea, then they can get constipated, and then they can have all kinds of issues. So antibiotics, I'm a chiropractor, remember that. Antibiotics were designed to be taken short course unless you have something that is killing you, essentially, and you're hospitalized, IVs, or being monitored that way. So one dose of antibiotics can change your microbiome. Now, here's the interesting thing. If she's taking an antibiotic because the microbes are in the air and everything else, it'll change my microbiome. So if you have a mom taking antibiotics and she is nursing a child, the child not only gets the antibiotics in the breast milk, but the child also gets the antibiotics via just being around the mother and what we call the holome and all of that.
Can I add something in here, because this is fascinating? So talking about your microbiome and babies and breastfeeding and stuff like that, your body will actually change its breast milk and dump like white blood cells into your breast milk that will actually help fight off the bacteria or virus in your baby, because of the microbiome in the mouth is always communicating via saliva. So your milk will actually change to your baby based on the bacteria in their mouth.
Yeah, that's called the microbial cloud. And the microbial cloud really senses, and they look at quorum sensing and stuff like this. And this is not, woo-woo science. This is where they are doing hard science looking at how these things change. And do you know what the number one, so let's take a step back from medical antibiotics. Do you know what the number one user of antibiotics is in America?
I guess I don't understand your question.
Who uses the most antibiotics in America?
Are you talking like a specific specialty, or?
So let's look at every type of industry.
I'm going to say pediatricians, or they used to.
Livestock.
Oh, I didn't even think. I was thinking about people, not animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, we inoculate everything. Baby chicks actually, the second day of life, get inoculated with antibiotics.
And why do they get inoculated by antibiotics? Fattens them up. They will gain 10% more weight. I believe that time may be a little bit off. I know it's 10%. I don't know if they gain 10% more weight or what it is, but because of the antibiotics killing off the microbiome, the chicks gain weight.
But they needed that.
Huh?
They needed their microbes.
Yeah, they needed that. I thought you were going to say they needed their antibiotics. I was like, no, they didn't.
No, they needed their microbes.
Yeah. Because that burns stuff off. So the antibiotics that we feed our livestock goes into you. So, there's the camera, goes into you. So if you're eating, and this is something that we don't even just have to think about conventional medicine, we have to think about where our food comes from, because we're not only what we eat, but we are what we ate or were subjected to. And so when we are eating conventional meat, CAFO farmed meat and stuff like that, so if you see,
We'll explain that in a 5th grade level.
yeah.
So if a farmer is giving their cows feed that is full of fillers that are like beef builders, so they're hormones that cause cows to gain weight,
and they're not allowed
necessarily
to go out
from grazing, then you eat that meat that's full of antibiotics or full of hormones, and then that meat does the same thing in you that it did in the cow, so you gain weight.
So let's really think about this a second. So if the animal that you are consuming is kept in a pen, is not allowed to free range, is given what the USDA says is normal for these types of animals, they will have several rounds of antibiotics, and that resides in the meat, and they have to have that. I'm not saying cattle farmers are evil. I'm saying because they need to make money, they need their cows to live. And if they don't give the cows antibiotics, then the cows will get a systemic infection and die. I'm telling you, my patients or my friends, well, not patients, I'm telling you, the people that listen to this, that if you eat confinement fed beef, then you are getting a whatever you dose yourself with, low level antibiotic, and it kills the bugs in your gut.
But you're more exposed via milk a lot of times.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
People love to drink milk.
Oh. And so one of the funny things that they're starting to see in the research now is there is an increase of autoimmune diseases and incidence of autoimmune diseases in the populations that use the most antibiotics. And why is that? Because your bugs train your immune system as to what's friend and what's foe. So if you are consuming antibiotics, you're stopping that process. And so then what happens is your body is left to think for itself, kind of, and it's not been trained to do that. And so then we start Hashimoto's disease. The body starts to get, well, you depend on the bugs not only to do the immune system, but you depend on the bugs to replace the slime layer in your gut. You depend on the bugs to help the tight junctions. You depend on the bug. They are associated with everything that happens in your body. So if you're killing these with antibiotics, with good Lord, nasal sprays, the allergy meds, those kill the bugs. PPIs will kill bugs. I mean, that changes your microbiome tremendously. So all of these things actually feed into that. So you have to be very, very careful. So the autoimmune diseases are being associated with antibiotic use. I wrote some notes here. So one of the main things to think about is for true health in the microbiome. What do I say all the time? We need a lot of diversity, and the fiber brings on the diversity. So enough of the bad stuff and the explaining why this is important. So if you're just joining in, you'll want to go back and watch the first part of this as we explain the antibiotics and what they do. Now, one last mention about antibiotics. Antibiotics have been shown to change the microbiome for up to 2 years after you've had the dosages. And that's research that was done by Microbiome Labs. It's published, so you can go to the National Institutes of Health and look that up. But it has been shown in double-blind, placebo, blah, blah, blah controls that, yes, it changes for up to 2 years. Now, diversity is the key. So how do you get the diversity to come back? The interesting thing is the microbiome doesn't seem to die off. In our experience, the bugs seem to hide. And what you have to do is change the environment to an environment.
You have to trick them.
Yeah, to come back out. So I call it, the way I explain it to my patients is the beat dog syndrome. You have thrown stuff at these things to kill them over and over and over and over and over again. I'm actually going to put Susan's comment up there so people can see that. So when you keep doing that, then they're going to go into hiding and they don't want to come out. They don't want to do their job, because if they come out and do their job, they just may get killed. And so it's a hostile environment. You have to start to bring the environment back and make it more conducive to them doing their jobs. And how do you do that? Fiber. Prebiotics, postbiotics, fiber.
Well, when we say fiber, but we don't mean go get a bottle of fiber off of a shelf. Like when we say fiber, we mean eat good food that has lots of natural fibers in it. Psyllium husks don't count. Those are fillers without nutrition for the gut bacteria in your gut. So fiber is found in your vegetables and your fruits and your grains that are not gluten. What else?
You want to really think about just your fruits and vegetables. And the more fruits and vegetables you can have to rebuild your system up. The other thing that you can use are immunoglobulins, IgGs. And then last but not least, if we see resistant cases to changing, because we've now been doing this long enough that we can show multiple patients changing their microbiomes in a very short amount of time. The Microbiome Labs actually has studies where if you remove the offending foods, you have a pretty clean system, meaning the liver's not burdened with toxins and stuff like that. and the diet is pretty good, so the person is overall healthy and exercising, you can change the microbiome within 48 hours. You can start to change the microbiome into a healthy pattern within 48 hours. Now you have to keep it up because it takes more than 48 hours, but that will start to do that for you. And just as another kicker, do you know what the CDC itself says? How much antibiotics are overprescribed? Or if we take all of the antibiotic prescriptions and we say there's 100 prescriptions of antibiotics, how many of those the CDC says are unnecessary?
Probably at least 75.
50%.
Well, and on that note, don't be mean to your doctor when they don't give you the antibiotic that you think you need, because
that's a huge problem.
It actually is, and they're actually trying to protect you, because eventually, if everybody keeps overprescribing and overusing, the antibiotics that we have aren't going to work. So, typically a virus, you won't feel better until 7 to 10 days. It takes 7 to 10 days. If you're still sick after 7 to 10 days, then you might have something more. But
so this is where we sit here and we
I
say,
guess I said that wrong. Typically, a virus will go away within 7 to 10 days. And if you're still sick after 7 to 10 days, you may need to go see your doctor.
So, long story short, especially if you're my age, her age, we're past 30 years of age, you really want to start to make sure that your car, your frame is running well. Everything is in order, and you want to make sure the immune system is working well. You want these things to be going and doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, so your immune system can educate itself. And so it can do its job. And then if you need an antibiotic, it's going to work.
But don't always just go right to the antibiotic, because there's so much you can do for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
That it doesn't require medicine. So you can feed yourself good things like
Olive
honey, oil, oregano,
rosemary,
thyme,
lemon,
vinegar.
Yep. There are so many things that help your immune system just run. Getting enough zinc, getting enough magnesium.
Echinacea, that's a huge one for colds, and zinc colds.
I want to say Burberry, not Burberry.
Elderberry.
Yes, elderberry, berberine. These are all great antimicrobials, natural antibiotics.
And also, since we're just talking about this, a lot of people, they're so uncomfortable that a lot of people truly need an antibiotic, they think, because they're so uncomfortable, but that's a UTI. So you can prevent those with D-mannose.
Yep.
And that actually makes the mucous membranes in your urinary tract slippery, so the bacteria can't attach and climb, so they can't get into your kidneys. And then you drink lots of fluid, a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of lemon juice, or just pure cranberry extract, and that actually is acidic, so it actually kills the bacteria, and then you urinate it out. So
a lot of this, and what a lot of the doctors, I just got off of a seminar where they were talking about wearables, the Aura Ring and all of this stuff, and tracking people and looking at heart rate variability to see how stressed the body is. And then, is it an infection? Are they stressed out? Whatever the case may be. But looking at these things and making sure that you're not adding stress to the system by what you're eating. Because if you're eating the standard American diet, you think of your immune system like a pack mule. You are just loading that thing down with more than it can carry, and you are beating it with a stick, trying to get it to move. And guess what? It's going to stop. Or you're going to have a cytokine storm, and that's and that's when the body is killing itself. The immune system is out of control. So there are lots of things that you can do, and the kicker here is we do it. If you need help with this type of stuff, Haley's your girl. If
Haley is amazing, actually, and I'm going to start updating that because I had started my journey with Haley a month ago or so, and she has been a great augmentation to what we already do. So,
well, I can already tell her thinking is changing because she won't. It's not a listening to me. She listens to me. She respects me, but because we're equals and we know what each other knows, we are always kind of like, yeah, you know, and we think for ourselves. But hearing that from an outside person, she's changing her thinking, and that's a good thing. And we all need help. I've had coaches, I've had health coaches, I've had triathlon coaches, I have 2 business coaches. I mean, I use coaches for everything.
well, and I will add that Haley is not somebody that's going to beat your diet into your head,
Yeah, no.
or
Well, I
she's
don't
not
know.
going to expect exercise, hardcore exercise. Like her process is totally different than the health coaches that I've known or worked closely with. I'm really excited to be working with Haley. And if you're interested, she actually does most of her stuff virtually. So anybody that can hear me can work with Haley. And if you're interested, you can get a hold of us. But she is phenomenal. And you can reach her at www.haley, Hailey, Hennessy, I believe it's HENNESSY.com, and we'll put it up here for you.
But she's an adjunct to what we do.
Yes.
This is something that I've wanted to use in the clinic for a long time. We use Val for calming people down with Reiki, for those people who have a lot of monkey mind. And she is personally working with Haley. So it's not just one lane. It's everything.
But Haley actually teaches you to calm your own mind, and she uses meditation. She uses stretching. She would just be fabulous.
So awesome. If you're struggling, you can reach out to us and we will be happy to help you out. We're right now 2 things. One is the plantar fasciitis. Haley has designed that. She just told me to talk about it. I guess she's going to give me a link. Make a comment if you want to know about that. We'll get that to you. The other thing is we are doing our normal thing. If you want me to look at your blood work, I want to see the CBC, I want to see the differential, and I can start to tell you what I see. And we've been working with a lot of people in the clinic to get them introduced to functional medicine. You know, they don't want to do all the tests. They just want little things to help them dip their toe into the water. And so we can start to see that kind of stuff and give you guidance. You know, if you want to look up anti-inflammatory, gluten-free diet and do your own thing, that's what we're here to help you do. But if you want to jump in and really start to tinker under the hood, or if you've, like most of our patients, you have tinkered under the hood and you've hit a hard wall, then that's where we start to go in and we will help you change the microbiome. We will help you calm down the immune system, and then we will help you achieve your goals. Thank you very much, and we will see you next week. Next week's topic, I actually put the next 4 topics in order already. Honestly, I didn't pick them. Thank you, Bill, for sending us a suggestion. I didn't pick the topics. These are topics that Haley said, hey, check these out. These are what we get the most questions for. So thank you very much, and we will see you next time.